Take charge of your leadership development. Join our How to Take the Lead Substack community for bonus materials, exclusive content, and discussions that will challenge and change the way you lead. Visit howtotakethelead.com to find out more.
I wondered where you were going with that then. Any murders you'd like to tell us about, please feel free to just, DM one of us.
That too. I love a bit of true crime. You're listening to How to Take the Lead with Lee Griffith
and Carrie Ann Wade,
two corporate colleagues turned business besties who question everything we've ever learned about leadership.
What started with us putting the world to rights over a gin after work is now a weekly show challenging the myths and perceptions and exploring what leadership looks like in the modern day.
We'll also be sharing our experiences and stories along the way.
You can find our show notes at howtotakethelead.com.
Hit subscribe to receive new episodes every Thursday.
Plus, we'd love for you to rate or leave a review of the show.
And please share your thoughts and stories on the topics we cover using the hashtag HowToTakeTheLead. Okay, so we couldn't stay away, it seems. We are back for bonus drop number 3. But this was a bit of a different one, really. We just wanted to pop in to say a bit of a thank you to people who've been supportive of us, not only in the development of this podcast, but also in terms of our businesses and all the stuff that we've been doing over the last couple of years, which I think when we go back to first sat in a bar with a gin, putting the world to rights in our day jobs.
The usual place you can find us, sat somewhere with a gin.
But we didn't really, I don't think either of us would ever have rolled forward 5 years and thought we'd be sat here on a podcast, putting the world to rights for everyone else to hear.
Yeah, publicly putting the world to rights.
So this little bonus episode, we really wanted to say thank you to a few people, but we also thought it might be a helpful idea, really, to share some resources and things that we've found inspiring in our journeys. So we've got some podcast recommendations, some book recommendations, and a bit of a people shout out. I need to warn you, Carrie Ann, I feel like mine's a bit like the Oscars list, and you might have to fade up the music at some point.
Yeah, just like cut, get her off. Need a big hook to just pull you away from the microphone if you start going on and on. As long as you don't cry, I think I'll be able to live with it. Sob.
Well, that just feels like a challenge now, just to do that. So to kick things off, shall we start with, we're a podcast, so shall we start with podcasts? It'd be a bit weird if we said we didn't actually listen to any.
Yes, let's start with some podcasts that inspire us. Can I jump straight in with a couple?
Yes, please do.
So I absolutely love listening to, and I think I may have mentioned this person on other episodes when we were doing lives rather than a podcast. I absolutely love listening to Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett, because I think he is a really brilliant example of somebody doing leadership his own way and being very authentic and challenging some of the stereotypes of leadership. And I love that he has a whole array of different guests that he questions, and he doesn't hold back with some of his lines of questioning, which I really enjoy about it. So that would definitely be one of my top podcast listens if anybody hasn't listened and wants something new and a bit of a fresh thing to wrap their ears around.
Yeah, I had listened to him too. I can't say I always agree with him. I do find sometimes his views do come from maybe a male orientated place of privilege, but I do think he challenges things as well, and he's not afraid to hold people to account that he has on his show, which I like.
Absolutely. And I love not always agreeing with people, and I hope that people will listen to us and sometimes think, what? No, I've got a totally different experience or a totally different view. So I like that you've said that, because I think it's good to not always just be listening to things that always align perfectly with all of your thinking, because it challenges us a bit as well. So yeah, that would be my number one tip. Are you sharing one, or do you want my second podcast, hot tip podcast?
You should go for your next one, and then I can roll off my Oscars list.
Okie dokie. I'll just give you a chance to catch your breath and make sure you've got enough in you to reel off that list. You can't see this, but it's written on a whole toilet roll. No, that's obviously a really bad joke. My next podcast hot tip is going to be You're My Comms Hero. So if you work in the communications profession in any industry, I would absolutely recommend this podcast as an opportunity to hear from all sorts of different communicators from different backgrounds, talking about various different things that matter to them. And I have to also give a little shout out and a thank you to You're My Comms Hero for running a mini series on my 2-minute mentor session. So it was an absolute privilege to be part of the You're My Comms Hero podcast.
I loved that 2-minute mentor series. That is available to people if they do want to go back and listen to it.
Absolutely. Oh, as we're talking, I've got another one now, but I feel like I'm
go
turning
on.
into you.
No, go on.
I'm turning into you now. The Behavioural Science Marketing Bootcamp podcast with Ruth Dale, I have to give a shout out to because she very kindly featured me on one of her most recent episodes, and it's been brilliant listening to some of the other experts that Ruth interviews and talks with. So yeah, that's it. I'm not sharing any more. 3 from me.
Okay. Well, so this is going to sound like some weird fangirl moment, but actually my first podcast inspiration, I'd say, was you and someone called Jane from Quite the Hive, and she does Inside the Hive podcast. And when I first started my business, you both very, very kindly wrestled my arm behind my back and forced me to go onto your podcasts.
Really,
and it was
forced you out of your comfort zone, and now
Absolutely.
here you are hosting one.
Absolutely. I had no interest of doing podcasts in any way, and literally I think it was the same month that I'd launched the business, and yeah, I really enjoyed listening to both of your podcasts, and I thought it was amazing that you were so confident to have your own show and interview lots of people and whatnot, but I could never picture myself doing it, so I do think you were a bit of an inspiration, if that's allowed.
I'll take that. Yeah, thanks. I'll take one. I'll take one for Jane as well. Thank you.
The other podcast that I really enjoy is, I don't know if you've heard of Rachel Botsam, and she's got one called Trust Issues, and she does a lot around rethinking and reimagining what trust is, and she interviews some really interesting people, and just, yeah, she's made me think a lot about broader leadership issues and kind of way of working. So I highly recommend her. I think she's got 2 different podcasts out, but Trust Issues is one that I enjoy. And I also recommend to a lot of my clients the How to Own the Room podcast. I love the book as well, and I'm sure I'll be recommending that a bit later. But I like the fact that it's about stepping into your own space, which we talk about a lot, how to make sure that you're embracing your own version of confident and all of that kind of stuff. And she interviews a range of people talking about their careers, talking about, how they've embraced their own confidence issues and stuff like that. So I really recommend them.
Excellent. I'm loving your top tips, and I've got a new one there for me to listen to around trust issues.
Books. So, I mean, I've already mentioned How to Own the Room. I buy that for most of my clients as a book for them to read, because a lot of people come to me wanting to be more confident in how they connect and communicate with people. And I think this is a really good book with advice and tips. I don't know if it's one that you own.
I don't,
No.
but I feel like I should. I'm writing it down now to get on and buy.
I'm not going to go because you've heard enough of my voice, but do you want to share a couple of your books and then I will round it off?
I've heard enough of your voice. I love it. Yes, so I've got a few books that I would like to recommend that I have really enjoyed reading, that I've reread, and like you, I've recommended to other people. So one of them is The Squiggly Career by Helen Tupper and Sarah Ellis, and they are it's a brilliant book full of, again, tips and advice, but it really is focused on rethinking how you think about your own career journey, and the fact that actually careers now are not these kind of linear, just one directional kind of careers, and that actually your route to leadership and a fulfilling and happy career can be very different to perhaps the traditional views. And I love this one because it's got exercises throughout the workbook, which challenges you to really think and reflect and do a bit of work along the way, which I think is really helpful.
They've got a podcast as well, haven't they?
They also have a podcast. You are correct. So yeah, we're yes, a bit of synergies going on here with the podcast and the book. So that would be my first recommendation. My next recommendation, well, actually two recommendations that are slightly similar. I Am My Brand by Kubi Springer is a brilliant book that is, I think, touches on a lot of what we talk about through how to take the lead around personal brand as a leader, and that, you know, we do all have a brand, and how do we really refine that, think about it, get comfortable with it. I think that's something that she really helps to touch on, and she has a huge amount of experience working with big brands, and she really pulls that down into you as a person and you as a small business owner as well. So for any small business owners out there, another brilliant book. Again, there's a theme here with the books that I like. It's got exercises throughout to really start to help you challenge your thinking. And along a similar vein, around kind of brand and being more comfy and putting yourself out there, is Hype Yourself by Lucy Werner.
Oh,
and,
yes, I've got that.
I love that book. Another one with exercises in, so you can see what makes me tick. I need to read a bit and then do a bit and then read a bit more.
You like the pictures.
Yeah, they're all picture books. That's the clue. But another great book that helps you really focus on your small business brand, but I think absolutely applicable to you as an individual and a leader, to go through those exercises. And my list now turned into the Oscars thank you speech, because I'm just going to throw one more in that I really love, which is Kiki K's Your Dream Life Starts Here.
Oh.
And again, more exercises in this book, but it's a goodie because I think it gives you the opportunity to reflect more holistically. So not just on your work in life and career, but actually what brings you joy in life more generally. And I have been working my way through my own 101 dreams list. I haven't got 101 dreams on it yet, but I have crossed a few of those off, and some have been massive big dreams and some have just been little things that make me happy. So again, that's one I have shared with people that I've worked with. So I'm going to stop now. I'm tired of my voice, Lee.
You bought me that book when I left my corporate job, and before this Sunday Skies was even an idea. You bought me that book to figure out my life.
I did. So I hope it helped a tiny bit somewhere along the way.
Yes.
It's not just collecting dust on your bookshelf, Lee.
No, I've worked my way through the exercises.
Excellent. I love it. So you've got a gist for what I like in terms of reading material now. So how about you, Lee?
Well, actually, all my books, interestingly, are by female authors. So I don't know what that says. Anything Brené, obviously, has to be read and recommended. I particularly like Dare to Lead. I do think that's just makes you think again about vulnerability in leadership and having that courage and how you demonstrate that. And it certainly got me thinking, and I've recommended that to quite a few people. The other one that I buy for my clients is The Confidence Code by Katty Kay and Claire Shipman, which I just love this book because it reimagines or redefines rather what confidence is, and that you don't need to be that shouty leader, that you can have quiet confidence. And I know we've spoken before about the kind of notion of confidence, and actually it can be just because I'm quiet doesn't mean that I'm unconfident, for example. And that's always been something that people assume of someone if they're a quiet person. And this book just blows that theory to pieces, really. So I absolutely love it. And linked to that, my final book, which I finished last week, was Quiet by Susan Cain. And this is all about the superpowers of the introverted. And it really got me thinking about, well, I think this was written before the pandemic, this book, but there's so much in there about learning around the nature of the workplace in a post-pandemic world. So, you know, with hybrid working, with more open plan spaces, often people think, oh, you need to collaborate and do groupthink to get innovation and stuff. But if you're an introvert, and anywhere between a third and half of your workforce are going to be introverts, they don't thrive in those types of environments. And so we're actually doing a whole load of our staff a real disservice. And if you're an extroverted leader, you perhaps aren't listening to people who, I don't know, if there's a challenging time, they might be more risk averse, but actually it's proven that they should be listened to in settings where things are risky, like the banking crisis. Anyway, I'm basically explaining the whole book to you because I loved it so much.
I was going to say, we need another spoiler alert. I'm sure we've already had an episode with a spoiler alert for TV programmes. So now we've got don't need to read the book, just listen to Lee's summary. But it sounds brilliant. And as an extroverted leader, probably one I need to put on my reading list.
Yes. I've actually been posting about it on my social media, saying people should read it regardless of whether you're introverted, extroverted, or anywhere in between.
Excellent. So that's a great big list of book recommendations. So hopefully people's bookshelves are going to be heaving by the end of listening to this bonus episode. But I know one of the things we were really keen to do, Lee, and you mentioned it earlier, was just to share a few thank yous and shout outs to people who have inspired us, supported us, encouraged us along the way. So do you want to kick us off with some of your thank yous?
Yes. Well, sounds really, really cheesy. And actually, I won't tell him that I've name checked him, and then I'll figure out if he actually does listen to it. But I want to thank my husband, because I suppose I wouldn't have really had the courage to step away from my corporate job if he just didn't say, look, take the time, figure out. He basically told me to sit on the sofa and watch Netflix for months until I got bored, and then I'd figure out what it was I wanted to do. I mean,
how do I get a husband like this? That's my question. Let's hope somebody that's very close to me is listening to this podcast.
And I don't think until he put it like that, I don't think it would ever cross my mind that I could just step away from what I was doing in my corporate career. And I absolutely did need that break and that step away to realise what it is that I wanted to do. And the business came out of that. And he's been super supportive in lots of ways since the business started up. And he puts up with me with taking my pictures and all of that kind of stuff that comes with is he an influencer hubby? I don't know.
Oh my goodness, he is so well trained. Please can he give my fiance some tips, because I never get the photos taken ever, and if I do, they're always really bad ones.
Well, let's say there's a lot of direction needed, but but yes, so my first thank you would have to be to him. And yeah, as I say, we'll see if he's listening to this or not, because he usually has some sarcastic comment or something to make.
Excellent. I'm loving that. Thank you. That's such a good one.
Do you want to thank someone? Because I could go on forever with names.
I'm going to thank somebody, and the person I'm going to thank, and there's no particular order to my thank yous. The person I'm going to thank is Michaela Jackson from She Almighty, because she is my coach. So I thought I should definitely give a shout out and a thank you to my coach. I'm taking my own leadership advice that I give out to people through How to Take the Lead about the importance of having a coach, and Michaela has just been brilliant and a huge part of my journey, both in my daily work life and in my cat's pajamas life, and we've been working together since 2019, and a massive thank you to her. And she's also opened up a brilliant network of other women in all different sorts of industries and from all different backgrounds that I now have access to through She Almighty. So yeah, that's my first thank you.
Oh, well, my coach is on my list as well, Carol, who was my coach when I was in my corporate career, and she's become a friend over time, but absolutely has been continuing to mentor and coach me as I set up my own coaching business. So she's been a real insight and cheerleader, I think, to all the things that I've done. So I definitely wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't without her support over many, many years. And similarly, one of my past colleagues, Carolyn, who I used to work with in a hospital, again, quite a few years ago now, but we've stayed very close friends, and she's just been a champion. She's listened into all our previous Take the Leads when we were on our lives. She's always sending encouragement and nice words of support and giving me her kind of thoughts and insights on the topics as well. So I always value her advice and guidance.
Oh, I love that. And oh God, I'm feeling like this is getting a bit emotional with all these thank yous. I've got to go in and say a massive thank you to Jane Galloway from Quiet the Hive, who you have already mentioned, and Lorna Reeves from my events, because as you will know, and this is part of that, I absolutely love the opportunity to collaborate and do hopefully brilliant and great and creative things with people. And as well as being really good friends, Jane and Lorna are also co-collaborators in another project that I'm involved in, and they are constantly being amazing cheerleaders. They are never frightened to offer me constructive criticism or challenge me when I need it, and they have been a huge part of the Cat's Pajamas journey. So yeah, just to thank you to both of those amazing women.
Lovely. So I'm going to wrap up things on my end anyway quite quickly with just a few more names. So I want to name check Sarah Dalrymple and Liz Ellery. They both have become business buddies since I've launched my business. Liz did all my branding, my website and everything, did my photos when I first started the business, and we've stayed in touch, and we often run ideas past each other, and it's been great to have someone who's a few steps ahead of me in business that I can just pick up the phone to or drop a line to, and she'll give me advice and steer me in a direction. And Sarah, I've been on a couple of her courses, and she's been a bit of a coach to me in the last year in terms of really redefining what my offer is and the services and how I sell with confidence, because that was something that felt a bit icky to me, and she definitely kind of broke me away from that. So I'm super grateful to the two of them. She's also become a friend that we can bounce ideas and stuff off with and have co-working days and all of that kind of stuff. And then finally, I'm in a couple of different mastermind stroke kind of incubator groups. So I've got the Youpreneur Incubator group and colleagues in that. Particularly, I want to say thank you to Becca and to Bob, both of whom have given me advice and guidance on the setting up of this podcast. They've both got their own podcasts, and they've been really, really helpful with kind of techie stuff and steering me of how to edit things and what tech I should use and all of that kind of stuff. So really appreciate them. And Helen Reynolds Comms Business Club as well. They've been really helpful just to sense check stuff as we've been setting up this podcast. So want to do a big shout out to them as well.
Brilliant. Massive shout outs there. And as you're talking, I'm like, oh God, yeah, how can I forget this person? There's more people I need to thank. I've got to thank Vicky, my friend Vicky, who when I started out with Cat's Pajamas and I had to go on Instagram stories and just talk to myself, which was really uncomfortable, even as an extrovert. And then when we started doing our lives, was basically like my chief audience tester, who would come back to me and say, yeah, that was really good, but if you could blink a bit more, it might look less intense, or if you could maybe just, when you're walking, you're more natural than when you're just sat there looking at the phone. So she's definitely been a good person to give me some unfiltered, as we like it, unfiltered advice and feedback. I'd also like to shout out Samantha Murfitt from Brighter Splash, who is absolutely one of my most brilliant friends, but also she supported my rebrand of Cat's Pajamas and the development of my new website with her team, which has been just brilliant. And I also feel like I should give a little shout out to Daniel Reynolds, who's comms director at NHS Confed at the moment, for being informal. At the moment, I didn't mean that as in like he won't be seen. I just mean when I met him.
Breaking news!
No, when I met him, he was a comms director somewhere else. That's what I meant. I'm not breaking news. He's not getting the sack. I hope he's not.
Well, I wasn't even going there. I thought he might have had a new job, but you're just digging a hole now.
I am. Can somebody take this massive spade off me? Anyway, on a more positive note, the reason I wanted to give Daniel a shout out is because he's often given me career advice, comms advice in the various different guises that I've been able to work with Daniel. And he's also been a massive supporter of Cat's Pajamas, as well as communications as a profession in the NHS, which is obviously where my day job sits. So yeah, the list is almost endless, isn't it?
It is, yes. I thought you had more on your list.
Oh, I did have more on my list. Can I keep going?
Go on, keep going.
Can I keep going? Okay. The more on my list definitely has to be a shout out for Asif Chowdhury. I've already mentioned Comms Hero, and Asif is a huge supporter of the profession. He's been a huge supporter of us. He's
Absolutely
been kind enough to let us feature on Comms Hero Week last year. We're doing it again this year. So we're gluttons for punishment, or maybe Asif is a glutton for punishment. Yes. Who knows? He's definitely been a massive supporter of How to Take the Lead, which we are very, very grateful for. I've got 2 more thank yous, and then that will be it. My penultimate thank you goes to my partner, who also has a huge amount of sarcasm that comes with his support, but definitely has been somebody who has encouraged me and just enabled me to just go for it, and told me to stop being so silly when I've had my big wobble moments, and has definitely been a huge supporter, and has had to stay quiet when we've been doing lives and all sorts of other things, and just rolls with it basically. And I'm very grateful for that. And then my final thank you, cringy as it is, going to be to you, Lee. I'm just going to throw it out there. Thank you for putting up with me, particularly when I'm making all the gaffes this series. Normally it's you. We've moved to podcasts and I'm the one getting it all wrong. So thank you.
This time.
There's still time. There's plenty of episodes left. But a huge thank you to you for just going with it when we had this really out there idea that we were going to just start talking publicly about some of the things we usually only talk about over gin. And it's been brilliant. And I know we've got great things planned for How to Take the Lead. And I'm really pleased that all that time ago when we met and we were trying to work out a way that we could work together, we've finally managed to make that happen. So huge thank you. And for your work on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you to you too. I couldn't think of a better person to help me step out of my comfort zone than you. So, yes.
I know, love hearts. That's probably enough now, isn't it? It's a bit sick inducing for everybody else who's listening.
Well, that is the end of the episode. It's much, much, much longer than we were anticipating when we jumped on this.
Yeah, the bonus set that was going to be, maybe 6 minutes, 10 maximum. We've cracked out a whole entire episode here, 30 minutes.
Yeah, but hopefully you've got some really useful resources there and things to listen to and to read. We'd love to hear your recommendations of podcasts, books, films, TV, any murder detective shows. I
wondered where you were going with that then. Any murders you'd like to tell us about, please feel free to just DM one of us.
Well, that too. I love a bit of true crime. Anyway, we will be back on Thursday with a new episode. Until then,
get out there and take the lead. Thanks again for listening to today's episode.
Don't forget to hit subscribe so you're the first to receive new episodes when they drop every Thursday.
If you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you would rate it or leave a review.
And let us know your thoughts and own experiences.
Get in touch with either of us on LinkedIn, Twitter or Instagram.
Or use the hashtag HowToTakeTheLead.
Until next week, get out there and take the lead.